South Korea signed a massive arms deal with Poland to sell tanks and howitzers worth almost $5.8 billion. This confirmed part of a framework contract agreed upon last month. At the signing ceremony held in Poland on Friday local time, the country's defense minister signed the deal and handed it to the head of the Defense Acquisition Program Administration.
3 months ago, when I was visiting Seoul, we started the negotiations. 2 months ago, the presidents of our countries spoke about our cooperation when they met in Madrid during the NATO summit. 1 month ago, we signed the framework contracts, and today we signed contracts for the sale of K2 tanks and K9 howitzers for Poland.
Poland's newest armored force doesn't move quietly. It moves with intent. Across the flat, open terrain of Eastern Europe, land that has seen partitions, invasions, uprisings, and armored thrusts in every direction, a transformation is underway. Railcars unload fresh-painted hulls, crews train on unfamiliar systems, maintenance depots expand, ammunition contracts multiply. Poland is not simply upgrading its tank fleet, it is rebuilding its deterrence from the ground up. And the scale of what it's doing is unlike anything else happening in Europe right now. For years, Poland operated a mixed armored inventory. Soviet-era T-72s formed the backbone. The domestically upgraded PT-91 Twardý extended their lifespan. German Leopard 2A4 and 2A5 tanks strengthened NATO interoperability. It was a practical structure, affordable, functional, integrated with alliance doctrine. But it wasn't designed for what 2022 revealed. Russia's invasion of Ukraine shattered lingering assumptions across Eastern Europe. It proved that high-intensity mechanized warfare was not a relic. It proved that tanks still mattered, not in isolation, but in combination with artillery, drones, logistics, and air defense. It also proved something else. Geography still decides who feels danger first. Poland borders Kaliningrad, heavily militarized and directly connected to Moscow. It borders Belarus, aligned militarily with Russia. It sits just west of Ukraine, where mechanized warfare returned in brutal clarity. And then there is the Suwałki Gap, a narrow corridor between Kaliningrad and Belarus, frequently described as NATO's most vulnerable land link. If conflict spreads westward, Poland is not a rear area, it is the front line. Warsaw responded accordingly. Instead of incremental modernization, it chose acceleration. Instead of cautious procurement, it chose scale. Instead of a single supplier, it chose diversification. First, the Abrams. Poland signed agreements to acquire American M1A2 SEPv3 Abrams tanks, among the most advanced variants in operational service. This is not an entry-level platform. It includes upgraded composite armor, improved power management systems, enhanced communications architecture, and compatibility with advanced ammunition. The Abrams is heavy, over 70 tons in advanced configuration. It is not built for speed records, it is built for survivability and firepower dominance. The 120mm smoothbore cannon can fire advanced kinetic energy penetrators capable of defeating modern armor. It can fire multi-purpose programmable rounds designed for urban and complex terrain. Its optics and fire control systems are battle-tested across decades of American operations. For Poland, Abrams delivers immediate integration with U.S. Army forces stationed in Europe. Shared ammunition, shared doctrine, shared maintenance knowledge. That matters when deterrence depends on coalition cohesion. But Poland didn't stop there. It also signed a major deal with South Korea for K2 Black Panther tanks, including a customized K2PL version tailored specifically for Polish needs. This is where the strategy becomes bold. The K2 Black Panther is one of the most modern tanks currently in production. It features a 120mm smoothbore cannon with autoloader, reducing crew size to 3. It emphasizes mobility, advanced suspension, and digital integration. Unlike the Abrams 4-person crew with a human loader, the K2's autoloader allows sustained firing consistency without fatigue. That difference represents two schools of tank design operating side by side within Poland's force. The K2PL variant is expected to feature enhanced armor packages, modified communication systems for NATO compatibility, and significant domestic production over time. And that domestic production component is crucial. Poland's long-term vision is not dependency. It is industrial partnership. Technology transfer agreements allow for local assembly and eventual manufacturing capacity within Poland. That strengthens the national defense industry while ensuring sustained maintenance capability even during crisis. When fully realized, Poland's armored modernization could exceed 1,000 modern main battle tanks across Abrams K2 and upgraded Leopard platforms. That is not modest. That is transformative. Now let's talk doctrine. Ukraine demonstrated that tanks cannot operate alone. Columns without air defense were shredded by drones. Units without artillery coordination were stalled. Static armor became targets. Poland has studied these lessons closely. Modern armored warfare is layered. Drones scout ahead. Artillery softens targets. Air defense shields against missile and drone threats. Electronic warfare disrupts targeting signals. Armor advances under this protective umbrella. Poland's investments reflect this ecosystem approach. Beyond tanks, Warsaw has increased procurement of artillery systems, air defense platforms, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Armor is not the entire solution. It is the centerpiece of a broader defensive architecture. Now consider the battlefield environment. Ukraine showed the world how drones changed everything. Small quadcopters provided persistent reconnaissance. First-person view drones acted as low-cost precision munitions. Loitering munitions attacked from above. Artillery corrections occurred in real time. No tank, no matter how thick its armor, can ignore the sky. Abrams variants can integrate active protection systems. Discussions around hard-kill interceptors like Trophy have shaped survivability planning. The K2 platform is similarly compatible with advanced active protection integration. Because steel alone is no longer sufficient, layered defense is mandatory. Passive composite armor, reactive modules. Electronic countermeasures, hard-kill interceptors, camouflage discipline, rapid relocation tactics. Ukraine made it clear, the tank that fires and lingers becomes a target. The tank that fires and moves survives longer. Poland's modernization emphasizes readiness for this reality. Mobility plays a key role. The Abrams delivers heavy survivability and battlefield presence. The K2 emphasizes agility and advanced high-drop pneumatic suspension, allowing dynamic adjustment across varied terrain. Poland's geography is diverse. Forests in the north, river networks, open plains, urban corridors. A mixed fleet provides flexibility. Heavy units anchor defensive lines. Mobile units maneuver across flanks. Reserve formations reinforce pressure points. But scale introduces complexity. Operating Abrams and K2 platforms simultaneously increases logistical demands. Different engines, different maintenance protocols, different spare parts pipelines. Poland appears willing to accept that complexity in exchange for resilience. Diversification reduces vulnerability to supply chain disruption. If one production line faces delays, another continues. This is procurement as strategic insurance. Now consider numbers in context. Many Western European armies reduced armored forces after the Cold War. Emphasis shifted toward expeditionary operations and lighter forces. Poland is reversing that trend. It is rebuilding heavy capability at a time when much of Europe is only beginning to rearm seriously. That alters NATO's internal balance. A large, modern Polish armored force strengthens the alliance's eastern posture dramatically. It reduces pressure on rapid reinforcement from Western Europe. It complicates adversary planning. Deterrence relies on visible capability. Poland is making its capability visible. Now imagine the scenario analysts often discuss. Tensions escalate in the Baltic region. Military exercises increase near borders. Airspace violations become frequent. Hybrid operations intensify. Polish armored brigades mobilize. Abrams units deploy to key defensive sectors. K2 formations maneuver toward vulnerable corridors. Leopard 2PL units reinforce secondary positions. Drone reconnaissance expands situational awareness. Artillery coordinates with forward observers. Air defense systems stand alert. The message is unmistakable. Any incursion would meet mass and readiness immediately. That is deterrence through preparedness. But let's be clear, rapid expansion carries risk. Defense budgets must sustain long-term operational costs. Crews must be trained to high proficiency across multiple platforms. Maintenance pipelines must function without interruption. Buying tanks is the beginning. Keeping them combat-ready for decades is the real challenge. Poland's government appears committed to sustained investment. Defense spending has increased significantly, reaching levels proportionally higher than many Western European allies. This signals political will, and political will underpins deterrence credibility. Now let's zoom out again. For centuries, Poland's strategic problem was vulnerability between larger powers. Today, it is leveraging alliance membership and economic growth to reshape that dynamic. Instead of being merely a corridor, it is becoming a fortress. Armor is central to that transformation, not because tanks alone win wars, but because they anchor land defense. They project strength visibly. They complicate offensive planning. Ukraine's battlefield reinforced that tanks are not obsolete. They are evolving. Those that integrate with drones, artillery, and electronic warfare remain decisive. Those that fail to adapt become burning footage. Poland's choices suggest it intends to be on the adaptive side. Abrams provides hardened survivability and seamless integration with U.S. forces. K2 provides modern automation, mobility, and industrial partnership. Leopard upgrades preserve existing capacity. Together, they create depth, layered, diversified, and numerically significant depth. Now imagine a Polish tank crew years from now. Digital displays glow inside the turret. Drone feeds integrate into command networks. Artillery coordinates transmitted instantly. An Abrams platoon advances cautiously across open terrain, supported by K2 units on the flank. A drone identifies movement ahead. Target coordinates shared. Artillery fires. Armor advances under that umbrella. A laser warning alert triggers inside the turret. Smoke deployed. Position shifted within seconds. The engagement ends before the enemy closes distance. That is the vision. Not reckless aggression, prepared defense. Poland's modernization is not subtle. It is not minimalist. It is expansive. Some call it excessive. But from Warsaw's perspective, history argues for preparation. The cost of underestimating threat in this region has been catastrophic before, so Poland is building scale. Scale deters, scale buys time, scale strengthens alliance confidence, and scale signals seriousness. Will every contract unfold perfectly? Unlikely. Will logistics challenges arise? Certainly. Will budgets feel strain? Inevitably. But the strategic direction is unmistakable. Poland is becoming one of Europe's dominant land powers, and it is doing so deliberately. In an era when some questioned whether tanks still mattered, Poland answered with procurement. In an era when some believed high-intensity war was unlikely, Poland watched Ukraine and adjusted. In an alliance where burden sharing is debated constantly, Poland is increasing its contribution dramatically. And that is why its tank expansion feels almost shocking, not because the machines themselves are science fiction, but because of the commitment behind them, steel backed by budget, procurement backed by doctrine, scale backed by geography. If deterrence fails in Europe, armored brigades will matter. Poland intends to ensure that those brigades are ready, modern, and numerous. Across plains that have known too many armored columns in the wrong direction, Poland is preparing its own, not for conquest, for defense, for credibility, for survival in a security environment that no longer feels theoretical. Under skies now crowded by drones, in a world where artillery finds heat signatures within minutes, on terrain that history has contested repeatedly, Poland is not waiting, it is building. And when the last contracted tank rolls off the line and crews reach full readiness, Europe's eastern flank will look very different than it did just a few years ago. That is not incremental change. That is strategic transformation. And that is why Poland's tank program isn't just large. It's legitimately insane. In scale, in speed, and in strategic consequence. Not loud, not theatrical, just massive, deliberate, and very, very serious.